The ship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star. Inside, Kelthora pressed her three-fingered hand against the viewing panel and watched the primitive world below. The blue planet turned slowly beneath clouds of white, its surface covered in ice and scattered forests. Somewhere down there the humans lived. "They are not ready," said Vorthos, the expedition's military commander. His voice carried the weight of centuries. "Look at them, Scholar Prime. They kill without thought. They hunt their own kind when food runs low." Kelthora did not turn away from the window. She had watched the surveillance recordings 100 times. The humans were indeed brutal. They hunted the great mammals to extinction with their clever weapons. They left their wounded to die in the cold. When two tribes met over a water source, they fought until only one remained. They showed no mercy, no compassion, no empathy for any living thing. "I have seen what you have seen," Kelthora said quietly. "But I have also seen something else." She pulled up a holographic display. Images flickered in the air between them. A human female carrying 2 children through a flood. A human male sharing his kill with an injured stranger. These moments were rare, so rare they almost didn't exist. But they were there. "Mistakes," Vorthos said. "Random errors in their behavior. They are predators, pure and simple." "They are survivors," Kelthora corrected. "Look at their brains, Vorthos. Look at their hands. Their capacity for learning. They will not stay on this world forever. In time, they will reach the stars." The commander's skin shifted to a dark purple, a sign of deep concern among their people. "Then we should leave them here. Let them destroy themselves before they spread." Kelthora finally turned to face him. Her eyes, large and golden, held a sadness that seemed to fill the room. "We are dying, old friend. Our civilization ends with us. We have perhaps 100 years left, maybe less. The sickness cannot be stopped. I know this," Vorthos said. "All of us know this. We have accepted our fate. But our gift does not have to die with us." Kelthora moved to the center of the room, where a crystalline container floated in a field of light. Inside, a silver liquid swirled with colors that seemed alive. "For 10,000 years we have traveled the galaxy. We found species after species locked in violence, unable to reach beyond their own needs. We gave them the gift of kinship. We gave them empathy. And it worked," Vorthos agreed. "The Korthax stopped their endless wars. The Silith learned to cooperate. 43 species now live in peace because of us. But we were too late for all of them. We found them when they were already advanced, already formed. The gift sat on top of what they were, like a coat they could remove. The humans are different." Kelthora's voice grew stronger. "They are still becoming. Their minds are still flexible. If we give them the gift now, it will grow with them. It will become part of what they are." Vorthos stared at the silver liquid. "Or it will do nothing. Or worse, it could break them completely." "That is the risk," Kelthora admitted. "But consider the alternative. In 10,000 years, maybe 20, humans will master their world. They will build ships. They will spread to other planets. And if they do so without compassion, without the ability to care for others—" She let the sentence hang in the air. The commander understood. A species with humanity's intelligence and determination, but without empathy, would become a plague across the stars. They would consume and destroy everything they touched. "The council must vote," Vorthos said finally. The ship's council gathered in the central chamber. There were 23 of them, all that remained of the Velkari expedition. They were scholars, scientists, artists, and philosophers. They had spent their lives spreading compassion across the galaxy. Now they faced their final decision. The debate lasted 3 days. Some argued that humans were too dangerous. Others insisted they had no right to change a species so fundamentally. A few believed humans would develop compassion naturally given enough time. Kelthora listened to them all. When the arguments finally ended, she spoke. "We have changed 43 species," she said. "We believed we were helping them, but we gave them compassion after they had already become what they were. The gift never fully integrated. It remained foreign, a limitation on their nature. The Korthax still struggle with it. The Silith view it as a burden they must carry. She gestured to the viewing screens, where images of humans played across multiple displays. A mother nursing a child, a group hunting together, an old man teaching a young one to make fire. But look at these creatures. They already have the seeds of compassion. It is buried deep, fighting against their need to survive. If we give them the gift now, while they are still becoming, it will not be foreign to them. It will become their foundation. They will build everything else on top of it. Or it will make them weak, said Myrthos, the expedition's eldest scientist. They live in a harsh world. Compassion might cause them to fail, to die out. Perhaps, Kelthora said, but I do not think so. Humans are adaptable. They survive by changing, by learning. If compassion becomes part of them, they will find a way to make it a strength. The vote was close. 12 in favor, 11 against. Kelthora had the deciding vote as Scholar Prime. We proceed, she said. The modification took weeks to prepare. The Velkari engineered a pathogen, harmless except for one purpose. It would alter human genetics in specific ways, building new pathways in their brains. The change would not happen overnight. It would spread slowly through generations, each one becoming more capable of empathy, of feeling what others felt, of caring beyond themselves. They released it at 30 points across the planet, targeting the largest human populations. The pathogen spread like wind, invisible and unstoppable. Kelthora watched from orbit as the microscopic change began its work. She would never see the results. None of them would. The Velkari would be gone long before humans even learned to write. As the ship prepared to leave Earth's orbit for the last time, Kelthora sat alone in the observation chamber. Her body was failing. The sickness that plagued all her people had reached its final stages. She had perhaps days left. Did we do the right thing? Vorthos asked, joining her. He too was dying. They all were. I do not know, Kelthora said honestly. We gave them a gift that could save them or doom them. We changed them without their permission, without their knowledge. Perhaps that makes us no different than conquerors. Or perhaps it makes us parents, Vorthos said softly. Giving our children what they need to survive, even if they do not understand why. Kelthora managed a weak smile. I like that thought better. The ship left Earth behind, beginning its long journey back to the Velkari homeworld, where their species would sing its final song and fade into history. Kelthora died 3 days later, her last thoughts on the blue planet and the dangerous, brilliant creatures who lived there. On Earth, the change had already begun. A human mother felt a new urge to protect not just her own child, but the orphaned child of another tribe. A hunter felt strange regret when he wounded an animal and did not finish the kill quickly. A warrior, standing over a fallen enemy, hesitated for the first time in his life. The gift of kinship had taken root. In time, it would change everything. Sarah Chen straightened her uniform and walked into the council chamber. The enormous room stretched out before her like a cathedral of light and metal. Representatives from 47 different species sat in curved rows that rose toward the domed ceiling. At the center, a platform floated where speakers could address the entire assembly. Sarah had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years, but the sight still made her nervous. Humanity was the youngest species in the Galactic Council, having joined only 20 years ago. Many of the species present had civilizations older than human written history. Ambassador Chen, the council speaker announced. His name was unpronounceable to human tongues, but his translation device rendered it as harmonious voice. He was a Silith, his crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns. You have been summoned to address serious charges. I understand, Speaker, Sarah said, stepping onto the floating platform. It rose smoothly until she stood level with the lowest tier of seats. From the upper tiers, a massive figure stood. Commander Zekthor of the Korthax Empire towered over most species in the chamber, his armored body designed for combat and dominance. His people had once been conquerors, though the Velkari had changed them long ago. The old instincts still showed, The charges are simple. Zekthor's voice boomed through the chamber. Humanity has violated the Treaty of Non-Interference 17 times in the past 5 years. They have broken quarantine protocols on 6 worlds. They have uplifted 3 species without council approval. They have inserted themselves into conflicts that were not their concern. Sarah waited. She knew there was more coming. Most recently, Zekthor continued, human forces invaded Korthak's space to stop what they called a genocide on the colony world of Treshnor. They had no authorization. They had no right. Yet they came anyway, and now they demand we face consequences. The chamber filled with murmurs. Species spoke among themselves in hundreds of languages, creating a symphony of concern. Ambassador Chen, the speaker said, how do you respond to these charges? Sarah took a deep breath. I do not deny them. The murmurs grew louder. Zekthor's expression shifted to something that might have been satisfaction. We did enter quarantine zones, Sarah continued. On Valaris 7, a plague was killing millions. The quarantine was meant to prevent spread, but no one was helping those who were dying. We sent medical teams. We saved 4 million lives. Yes, we broke protocol. We would do it again. She turned slowly, addressing different sections of the chamber. We did intervene on Treshnor. The Korthaks were exterminating the Tresh because they refused to abandon their traditional lands. We sent peacekeepers. We evacuated civilians. We stopped the killing. Yes, we violated Korthak's sovereignty. We would do it again. You prove our point, Zekthor said. Humanity cannot be trusted to follow the rules. You act on emotion, on sentiment. You let compassion override logic and law. Yes, Sarah said simply. We do. The chamber fell silent. Even Zekthor seemed surprised by her directness. Sarah continued, her voice steady. 50,000 years ago, when humans were barely more than animals, someone came to our world. The Velkari found us brutal, violent, and without mercy. They could have left us to destroy ourselves. Instead, they gave us a gift. They gave us the capacity for compassion. She pulled up a holographic display. Images filled the air above the platform. Ancient Velkari writing translated into common galactic script. We found their records 15 years ago on an abandoned station. They knew what we were. They knew we might become dangerous, but they gave us compassion anyway. Sarah's voice grew stronger. We were given something we did not earn, did not deserve, and did not ask for. It saved us. It made us who we are. And because of that gift, we have a simple philosophy. The hologram changed, showing a human symbol. A circle with 2 hands reaching toward each other. We will not withhold from others what was given to us. We will not stand by when we have the power to help. We will break any law, violate any protocol, risk any consequence if it means showing compassion to those who need it. That is chaos, Zekthor said. That is anarchy. Laws exist for a reason, Ambassador. Order requires sacrifice. Sometimes some beings must suffer for the greater good. And who decides that? Sarah asked quietly. Who chooses which beings suffer? The Tresh did not volunteer for extermination. The people of Valaris 7 did not volunteer to die of plague while the galaxy watched. A new voice joined the debate. Ambassador Velthas of the Methir Collective, a species known for their logical approach to all problems. The human raises a valid philosophical point, but philosophy does not address the practical concern. If every species acted on emotional impulse, the council would collapse. We need order, Ambassador Chen. Then create better order, Sarah said. Write new laws that allow intervention when genocide occurs. Build systems for rapid medical response to quarantines. We will follow rules that make sense, but we will not obey rules that demand we ignore suffering when we can stop it. The debate continued for hours. Species after species stood to speak. Some supported humanity, moved by their passion and their history. Others condemned them, fearing the chaos that might come from emotional decision-making. Finally, after 6 hours of discussion, Zekthor stood again. The Korthak's empire proposes a test. The humans claim their compassion makes them strong. We disagree. We believe it makes them weak, and that weakness will be their downfall. What kind of test? The speaker asked. The frontier sector is disputed territory, claimed by both Korthaks and several smaller species. We propose a military contest. Korthak's forces against human forces. We will see if compassion is truly strength, or if it is merely sentiment that crumbles under pressure. Sarah felt ice in her stomach. The Korthaks were one of the galaxy's premier military powers. Humanity had advanced quickly, but they were still young. A direct military confrontation could end badly, but she also knew refusing would make humanity look weak and would embolden those who wanted to restrict human expansion. "What are the terms?" Sarah asked. "Simple," Zekthor said. 6 months. The frontier sector. Both sides may use any tactics they wish, recruit any allies, employ any strategy. At the end, whichever side controls more territory and has more local support wins. The winner's philosophy is recognized as valid by the council. And the loser, Sarah asked, accepts restrictions on their expansion and agrees to council oversight on all interventions for the next century. It was a trap, Sarah knew. The Korthax were counting on humanity's compassion to slow them down, to make them vulnerable. But it was also an opportunity. If humans could prove that compassion was a strength, it might change the entire galaxy's perspective. Sarah looked up at the thousands of eyes watching her from around the chamber. She thought of Kelthora, the Velkari who had given humanity its greatest gift. She thought of all the humans throughout history who had chosen kindness when cruelty would have been easier. "We accept," Sarah said, "but I want to add something to the terms." Zekthor's expression darkened. "What?" "When we win," Sarah said calmly, "and we will win, the Korthax agreed to allow human cultural exchanges with your people. No military presence, just teachers, artists, and philosophers. Let us show your people what compassion can really do." The Korthax commander laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. "When you lose, human, you will learn that the galaxy does not reward weakness." "Agreed to your terms. They will not matter." The speaker called for a vote. The council agreed to allow the contest. Sarah left the chamber knowing she had 6 months to prove that the Velkari had been right 50,000 years ago. She also knew that back on Earth, and across all human colonies, people would volunteer for this mission by the millions, because that was what humans did. That was what the gift had made them. As she walked through the station's corridors back to the human quarters, Sarah's communicator chimed. Messages were already flooding in from human military command, from civilian leaders, from ordinary people asking how they could help. She smiled. Zekthor had no idea what he had started. The Korthax thought they would face an army. Instead, they were about to face something much more dangerous, an idea that refused to die. Marcus Webb gripped the command chair as another blast shook his ship. The frigate Velkari's Promise was one of humanity's newest vessels, but against 3 Korthax dreadnoughts, it might as well have been made of paper. "Shields at 30%, his tactical officer reported. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka's voice stayed calm despite the chaos around them. "Portside weapons are offline. Keep us moving," Marcus ordered. "Don't give them a steady target." Through the view screen, he could see the massive Korthax ships. They moved with perfect coordination, their weapons firing in calculated patterns. The Korthax fought like machines, efficient and merciless. This was the 3rd battle in 2 months, and humanity was losing. Not badly, but consistently. The Korthax had the advantage in firepower and numbers. Every engagement followed the same pattern. Humans fought hard, tried to minimize casualties on both sides, and eventually had to retreat. "Captain, we're being hailed," the communications officer said. "It's the Korthax flagship. Put them through." The view screen shifted. Commander Zekthor's face appeared, his expression almost bored. "Captain Webb, you fight well, but you cannot win. Surrender this sector, and we will allow you to withdraw with honor." Marcus considered his options. They could run, regroup, and try again another day. It was the smart choice. But there was a civilian station nearby, home to 3 different species who had asked for human protection. If the Korthax took this sector, those civilians would be forced to leave or submit to Korthax rule. "Not today, Commander," Marcus said. "We're not done yet." Zekthor's expression shifted to something that might have been respect. "Then you will die here." "I am sorry for that." "You are brave, even if you are foolish." The connection cut. The Korthax ships began another attack run. "All crew brace for impact," Marcus announced. "Prepare to, Captain," Yuki shouted. New contact. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Marcus's heart sank. If the Korthax had brought reinforcements, this fight was truly over. But then his tactical display updated and he stared in confusion. "Those aren't Korthax ships," Yuki said, her voice filled with wonder. They're everyone." Ships appeared on the display like stars blinking into existence. Small vessels, civilian transports modified for combat, even some ancient freighters with weapons strapped to their hulls. They came from a dozen different species, flying under their own flags but broadcasting a simple message. We stand with humanity. The Trell, a small species whose homeworld humanity had saved from an asteroid impact. The Vosh, whose colony had received human medical aid during an epidemic. The Mythic, who believed in logic but had seen the logic in human compassion. Even a few Korthax ships marked with the symbol of the resistance movement within the Empire. There must be 50 ships out there, Marcus whispered. Why? Because we helped them, Yuki said softly. All of them. We didn't ask for anything in return, but they remember. The Korthax dreadnoughts hesitated. They could destroy any single ship easily. But 50 ships, even small ones, working together? That was a different calculation. Zekthor's face appeared again on the screen. He looked stunned. What is this? This is what compassion looks like, Commander, Marcus said. We don't fight alone because we don't help alone. Every species here remembers what humans did for them. They came because they wanted to, not because we asked. They are civilians, Zekthor said. Most of those ships have no military value. Then leave, Marcus suggested. We don't want to destroy your ships. We never did. We're here to protect the people in this sector, not to conquer Korthax territory. For a long moment, Zekthor said nothing. Then his ships began to withdraw. The fleet of mixed vessels held formation, watching until the dreadnoughts disappeared into hyperspace. Marcus let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His crew erupted into cheers, but he felt only exhaustion. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. Over the next 3 months, the pattern repeated across the frontier sector. The Korthax would attack, superior in every military sense, but humans never fought alone. Wherever they went, allies appeared. Species that humanity had helped, saved, or simply treated with respect showed up to return the favor. The Korthax began to change their tactics. They avoided direct battles and instead tried to win hearts and minds. They offered trade deals, protection, and technology to neutral colonies. But they found that humans had already been there, had already helped, and had asked nothing in return. A turning point came at the colony of New Tresh. The Tresh species, the same ones that humans had saved from Korthax extermination, had established a new world in the frontier sector. When Korthax forces arrived to claim the planet, they found not just human defenders, but Tresh civilians who refused to cooperate. We will not help you, the Tresh elder told the Korthax commander in a broadcast heard across the sector. You tried to destroy us. Humans saved us. We will never forget the difference. Similar stories played out on world after world. The Korthax weren't just fighting a military force. They were fighting against gratitude, against memory, against the bonds that humans had built through years of compassion. Commander Zekthor found himself in an impossible situation. His forces were tactically superior, but strategy meant nothing when the local populations actively worked against him. Supply lines were sabotaged. Intelligence was leaked to human forces. Neutral worlds that should have welcomed Korthax protection instead asked for human aid. In the 5th month, a Korthax patrol found a damaged human medical ship drifting near a neutral station. The ship had been hit by pirates and was losing atmosphere. Inside were 12 humans and 47 patients from 6 different species. The Korthax commander, a young officer named Talven, faced a choice. Military doctrine said to leave the ship. It was an enemy vessel and helping it would show weakness. But Talven had been watching humans for months now. He had seen how they fought, how they helped, how they chose compassion even when it cost them. He ordered his crew to rescue everyone aboard the medical ship. When Commander Zekthor heard about the incident, he did not punish Talven. Instead, he sat alone in his quarters and thought about what was happening. The Korthax had been modified by the Velkari too, given the gift of compassion long ago. But for his people, it had always been a burden, a limitation on their strength. They had learned to control it, to suppress it in favor of discipline and order. But humans were different. They used compassion like a weapon, like a tool. They made it a strength, not a weakness. And it was working. As the 6th month approached, Zekthor made a decision. He sent a message to Captain Marcus Webb, requesting a meeting on neutral ground. No weapons, no ships, just a conversation between 2 officers who had spent half a year trying to defeat each other. Marcus almost refused. He suspected a trap, But something in Zekthor's message felt different, felt genuine. He agreed to meet on an old trading station, abandoned decades ago but still functional. The two officers met in what had once been the station's main plaza. Zekthor arrived first, standing alone in the center of the vast empty space. Marcus came with no guards, no weapons, trusting in the same compassion that had started this whole conflict. "You won," Zekthor said without preamble. "Not the contest, not yet. But you won the larger war. My people cannot sustain this. Every world we take, we lose. Every battle we win costs us allies. You have turned the entire sector against us." "We didn't do that," Marcus said. "We just helped people. They made their own choices. That is what I am beginning to understand." Zekthor sat on a bench looking suddenly tired. "The Velkari gave us compassion, but we never integrated it. We kept it separate from who we are. We see it as a weakness to control. But you built your entire civilization on it." "It's all we know," Marcus admitted. "We don't remember what we were like before. We only know what we are now. Captain Webb, I have a request." Zekthor stood. "Before the 6th month ends and the council judges this contest, I want to show you something. There is a place, an ancient Velkari site. My people have been studying it for centuries. I think you should see it." Marcus studied the Korthax commander. He saw no deception, only curiosity and perhaps hope. "All right," Marcus said. "Show me." The planet Velkar Prime had been dead for 40,000 years. Its cities stood empty, monuments to a civilization that had chosen to fade away rather than watch itself slowly die. Sarah Chen walked through streets of crystalline architecture that still gleamed in the pale light of the system's dying star. This was their capital, Zekthor said, walking beside her. Captain Webb was there too, along with a small team of human archaeologists and Korthax scientists. "We found it 300 years ago. We have been trying to understand it ever since." The Velkari had left everything behind: buildings, technology, art, and most importantly, their records. The planet was a massive archive, a final gift to whatever species might come after them. "Why didn't the council know about this?" Sarah asked. She had come as soon as Marcus contacted her about the discovery. The contest was almost over. "But this seemed more important than any military victory. Because my people kept it secret," Zekthor admitted. "We wanted to understand the Velkari, to learn why they changed us. We thought if we could understand, we could find a way to reverse it or control it better." They entered a massive dome structure at the city center. Inside, holographic projectors still functioned, powered by technology humans barely understood. A Korthax scientist, elderly and scholarly, operated a control panel. "We found the central archive last year," the scientist explained. His name was Morthel, and he had dedicated his life to studying the Velkari. "It contains their complete history, including the records of every species they modified, including both humans and Korthax." "Show us," Sarah said. The hologram activated. The image of a Velkari appeared so clear and detailed it seemed alive. Sarah recognized her from Earth's records. Kelthora, the Scholar Prime who had come to Earth 50,000 years ago. "I am Kelthora," the recording began. "If you are watching this, my people are gone. I hope we are remembered kindly, but I know we may not be. What we did with good intentions, but perhaps that is not enough." The hologram showed images of different species across the galaxy. "For 10,000 years we traveled among the stars. We found violence everywhere. Species that could not see beyond their own needs, could not feel the suffering of others. We had a gift, a modification to the brain that enabled empathy and compassion. We shared it freely." The images shifted to show the Korthax in their ancient past before the modification. They were even more brutal than humans had been, conquering and destroying without hesitation. Then came the Velkari, and the slow change began. "We gave the gift to 43 species," Kelthora continued. "Each time we hoped it would take root and grow. But we were always too late. We found species after they had already formed their identities, their cultures, their ways of thinking. The gift of compassion became something external, something they had to learn to use rather than something that was naturally part of them." Zekthor's posture shifted. Sarah could see the realization hitting him. "Then we found Earth," Kelthora said. The hologram showed primitive humans hunting and surviving in a harsh world. They were so young, still becoming what they would be. And they were dangerous, more dangerous than any species we had encountered. Their intelligence was matched only by their ruthlessness. The recording showed the debate among the Velkari. the arguments for and against intervention. We made a choice, Kelthora said. We would give humans the gift while they were still forming, not as a limitation placed upon them, but as a foundation they would build upon. If it worked, they would be the first species to truly integrate compassion into their nature. If it failed, we might create something terrible. The hologram zoomed in on Kelthora's face. Sarah could see the fear and hope in those alien eyes. I do not know if we did the right thing, but I know we did it with love, hoping that humans would become something better than what they were. If you are watching this, humans of the future, know that we saw your potential. We saw what you could become if compassion was not a chain holding you back, but a tool you could use to reach the stars. The recording continued, showing the process of modification, the careful engineering of the pathogen, the release across Earth. Then it showed something new, data that humans had never seen before. This is what makes humans different, Morthel explained, highlighting sections of the data. Look at how the modification integrated. For my people, the Korthax, compassion sits in specific neural pathways. We can activate it or suppress it. It is separate from our core decision-making processes. He shifted the display to show human brain scans. But in humans, compassion integrated everywhere. It connects to their aggression, their problem-solving, their social structures. It became foundational. When a human feels aggression, they also feel empathy. When they solve problems, they consider the impact on others. It is not something they can turn off or ignore. It is what they are. Sarah felt tears on her face. She wasn't sure when she had started crying. So we're not naturally compassionate. We were made this way. Does it matter? Captain Webb asked quietly. Whether we were born with it or given it, it's still what we are. It matters because of what you did with it, Zekthor said. His voice was rough with emotion. My people received the same gift. We could have integrated it as you did, but we chose to keep it separate to maintain control. We thought compassion was weakness. We were wrong. The hologram shifted again, showing Kelthora's final message. She looked even older now, clearly dying. To whoever finds this archive, know this: compassion is not weakness. It is not a limitation. It is the most powerful tool any species can possess. It allows you to build alliances, to inspire loyalty, to create something greater than yourself. The species that learn this will inherit the galaxy. Those that do not will fade away, as we are fading. The recording ended. The dome fell silent except for the quiet hum of ancient technology. Sarah turned to Zekthor. What will you do now? The contest ends in 3 days. You could still claim victory on a technicality. You control more territory than we do. Territory means nothing, Zekthor said. You won where it matters. The people of the frontier sector support you, not us. And more than that, you showed me what we could have been if we had truly accepted the gift. He stood straighter, coming to a decision. I am withdrawing Korthax forces from the frontier sector. We concede the contest. But more than that, Ambassador Chen, I want to take you up on your offer. Send your teachers, your artists, your philosophers to Korthax worlds. Show my people what you have learned about compassion. Sarah was stunned. You're serious? I am. My people have lived with compassion as a burden for 40,000 years. Perhaps it is time we learn to make it a strength as you have. He looked at the hologram display where Kelthora's image still floated. Perhaps it is time we honored the gift we were given. Over the next weeks, the news spread across the galaxy. The Korthax had conceded. More importantly, they had opened their worlds to human cultural exchange. The Galactic Council was forced to acknowledge that humanity's approach to compassion was valid, even if it was unconventional. But the real change happened quietly, in small moments across thousands of worlds. Korthax officers began to question their training. Silith philosophers started incorporating human ethics into their teachings. The Methir, with their logical minds, began to study compassion as a strategic advantage, rather than an emotional weakness. The discovery of Velkar Prime changed everything. It became clear that the Velkari had not just modified humans and a few other species. They had modified hundreds, perhaps thousands over their long history. But only humans had truly integrated the gift. Sarah stood in the human embassy on the council station, looking at a new statue that had been erected in the main plaza. It showed a Velkari and a human, hands reaching toward each other. The inscription was simple. They gave us compassion. We give it to the stars. Marcus joined her, now promoted to admiral for his actions in the frontier sector. Do you think they knew? He asked. The Velkari. Do you think they knew what humans would become? I think they hoped, Sarah said. And hope is a kind of compassion too, believing that someone can be better than they are, and giving them the tools to reach that potential. Then we have a responsibility, Marcus said. We were given something precious. We need to make sure it wasn't wasted. Sarah nodded. Across the galaxy, humans were already working on that responsibility. Medical teams helping species in need. Engineers building infrastructure on developing worlds. Teachers sharing knowledge freely. Diplomats building bridges between old enemies. The Velkari had given humans compassion 50,000 years ago. Now humans were giving it back to the galaxy, one world at a time. It was not conquest. It was not domination. It was simply what the gift had made them capable of doing. And perhaps, Sarah thought, that was the greatest monument any species could leave behind. Not in stone or metal, but in the hearts and minds of those who came after. The memorial complex on Velkar Prime had grown beyond anything the original planners imagined. What began as a simple archive had become a living city, a place where representatives from 200 species lived and worked together. They called themselves the Keepers, and their task was to maintain the Velkari legacy for all time. Amara Okafor stood at the edge of the plaza, watching the sunrise paint the ancient crystalline buildings in shades of gold and purple. She had been president of the Human Federation for 5 years, but she never tired of visiting this place. It reminded her of why humans did what they did, why they continued to spread compassion across the galaxy, even when it was difficult or dangerous. President Okafor, a voice called. She turned to see Zekwe approaching. He was young for a Korthax, barely 50 years old, but he carried himself with the dignity of his great-grandfather, the famous commander Zekthor, who had learned to see compassion as strength rather than weakness. Scholar Zekwe, Amara smiled. Are the preparations complete? Almost. The delegation from the outer colonies arrived an hour ago. We're just waiting for the chorus to finish their final review of the historical records. He gestured toward the central archive building, where lights flickered in patterns that seemed almost alive. The chorus was something new in the galaxy, something that would have seemed impossible a century ago. When humans discovered fragments of Velkari consciousness preserved in ancient data storage, they spent decades figuring out how to revive them. Not as individuals, but as a collective intelligence, an AI entity that held the memories and knowledge of the extinct species. Together, Amara and Zekwe walked toward the amphitheater, where the centennial ceremony would take place. 100 years since the discovery of Velkar Prime. 100 years since humans proved that compassion could change the galaxy. My great-grandfather would have been proud of what we've built here, Zekwe said quietly. He spent his final years teaching Korthax children about compassion. He said humans taught him more in 6 months than he had learned in 300 years of military service. The Korthax have changed remarkably, Amara agreed. Your people have integrated compassion into your culture in ways that inspire everyone. We had a good example to follow. Zekwe smiled. Though I must ask, President Okafor, is it true? The rumors about the generation ship? Amara's expression became serious. It's true. The Kelthora's dream launches in 3 days. We're sending it to the Andromeda galaxy. That's a one-way trip, Zekwe said, shocked. 2.5 million light years. Even with our fastest drives, it will take thousands of years. 37,000 years, according to our calculations, Amara confirmed. The crew will be in stasis with AI systems maintaining the ship. When they arrive, they'll search for intelligent life and offer the same gift the Velkari gave us. Some species will call that arrogant, Zekwe warned, imposing human values on distant galaxies. Some species already do, Amara said with a slight smile. We don't impose anything, we offer. Every species chooses for themselves, just as the Velkari offered to us, just as we've offered to others. If a species doesn't want the gift, we respect that. But we have to try. That's what the gift makes us. They entered the amphitheater, a massive open-air structure that could hold 10,000 beings. It was already half full, with more arriving every minute. Amara saw species from every corner of the galaxy. Some were modified by the Velkari directly, like the Korthax and Silith. Others had received humanity's help in integrating compassion into their cultures. A few were completely new to the concept, visiting to learn. At the center of the amphitheater stood a monument. It showed Kelthora's ship leaving Earth, captured in metal and light. Beneath it, an eternal flame burned, maintained by energy systems that would last for millions of years. The ceremony began with traditional Velkhari music, haunting and beautiful, recreated from ancient recordings. Then came speeches from representatives of different species, each telling their story of how compassion had changed their worlds. A Tresh elder spoke of her people's rescue from genocide, her voice trembling with emotion. A Methir scientist presented data, showing how cooperation based on compassion produced better outcomes than competition based on self-interest. A young Silith poet recited verses about the interconnectedness of all life. Finally, it was Amara's turn to speak. She walked to the center of the amphitheater, looking out at the assembled beings from across the galaxy. 100 years ago, she began, her voice carried by speakers to every corner of the space. Humanity stood accused of being too compassionate. We were told that our empathy was weakness, that our willingness to help others would be our downfall. We were challenged to prove that compassion could be strength. She paused, letting the words settle. We did prove it, but not in the way anyone expected. We didn't win through military might or tactical superiority. We won because compassion creates something stronger than any weapon: trust. When beings know you will help them without asking for anything in return, they remember. They trust. They reciprocate. Amara gestured to the crowd. Look around this amphitheater. 200 species living together, working together, building together. This exists because 50,000 years ago, a dying species looked at primitive, violent humans and saw potential. They gave us a gift we didn't earn and didn't deserve. They gave us compassion. Her voice grew stronger. But here's what the Velkhari understood that took us millennia to learn. Compassion isn't just about feeling what others feel. It's about choosing to act on those feelings. It's about seeing suffering and deciding to stop it, even when it's difficult, even when it costs you, even when the laws or logic say you shouldn't. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Some have asked me why we're sending the Kelthora's dream to Andromeda, Amara continued. Why spend resources on beings we'll never meet in a galaxy we'll never see? The answer is simple: because we can. Because we have the technology and the knowledge. Because somewhere in that distant galaxy there might be a species like we were, brutal and brilliant and trapped in their own violence. If we can offer them what was offered to us, how can we not try? She looked up at the monument, at the image of the ancient ship leaving Earth. The Velkhari are gone, but their legacy lives in every compassionate act. In every moment, someone chooses kindness over cruelty. We cannot bring them back, but we can honor them by spreading their gift as far as we can reach. As Amara stepped back, the chorus entity activated. Holographic projections appeared throughout the amphitheater, showing the preserved consciousness of ancient Velkhari. They moved and spoke with their own voices, reconstructed from millennia of stored memories. The voice that emerged was gentle and filled with wonder. We see what you have become, the chorus said, speaking as one. We see what you have built. When we gave humans compassion, we hoped it would save them from themselves. We never imagined it would save so many others as well. The holographic forms shifted and changed, showing memories from the Velkhari's long history. We modified hundreds of species across millions of years. Most forgot us. Some resented what we did. But humans remembered. Humans honored. Humans continued our work in ways we never could have imagined. One particular hologram solidified, and Amara recognized Kelthora herself, or at least the chorus's reconstruction of her. I have watched through the fragments we preserved, Kelthora's image said. I have seen humans heal worlds, stop wars, save species from extinction. I have seen them risk everything to show compassion to strangers. And I have wept, knowing that our final act was not futile. We feared we would create monsters. Instead, we created gardeners. The ceremony continued for hours with more speeches, more music, more shared stories. But the moment that resonated most came at the end, when a young Korthax warrior, barely an adult, asked to speak. He stood nervously before the massive crowd. My name is Telkos, he said. I am training to be a military officer, like my great-great-grandfather Zekthor. In our history classes, we learn about the time before compassion, when the Korthax conquered and destroyed. We learn about the Velkhari modification and how we fought against it for thousands of years. He paused, gathering courage. And then we learn about humans, about how they showed us what we could have been if we had accepted the gift from the beginning. I have a question that many of my generation ask. What would humans be without compassion? What were you like before the Velkari came? Silence fell over the amphitheater. It was a question many had wondered, but few dared to ask. An elderly woman stood from the crowd. Amara recognized her as Sarah Chen, the ambassador who had faced the Galactic Council a century ago. She was over 130 years old now, kept alive by medical technology, and she rarely appeared in public. "I'll answer that," Sarah said, her voice still strong despite her age. "We would have been extinct, or alone in the galaxy, having destroyed or been destroyed by everyone we met. Compassion didn't just change what we are. It saved us from what we would have become." She walked slowly to the center of the amphitheater. Before the Velkari, our ancestors were apex predators. They hunted everything to extinction, including sometimes each other.